About to happen. Here we go. Happening. Hello. Is it 3 o'clock by my phone? Not quite. We'll just have to sit here a moment. Welcome to weekly office hours. The topic this autumn semester, we are focusing on rider position, the rider's seat, the instrument of the rider's body. And this week's topic is the rider's foot or feet. And I have asked a trained physical therapist who is more adept with the language of anatomy and physiology than I am to phone in. I don't know if she's going to be able to. So I'm going to start talking about the foot, which is a prolongation of the leg. If the leg is just, the leg hangs from the knee, and the foot is a prolongation of the hanging leg. And if we put a stirrup under the ball and it's just loose, then the heel will be down. But if there's no stirrup, a hanging leg will just be hanging. Too many riders have been taught to have a very rigid, hard leg. And actually, the leg is supposed to embrace the barrel of the horse and have a constant contact, the contact of a postage stamp. I'm at my desk, so I have all this stuff. A postage stamp. So a postage stamp, there's no pressure from this stamp. It just is in contact. Do you see that? There's no pressure from the stamp, just from contact. That is the way that our leg is supposed to rest on the horse's side. Then if I want to use my leg, I say, hello, hello, and my leg at the girth will say, hello, and he will then pick up the corresponding hind leg if he's been trained. So here's the postage stomp. That is the degree of contact that our leg should have with the horse's side. And it is actually just the weight of the leg. The barrel spreads, so the weight of our leg is just resting on the side, and the leg is hanging down, and the foot is just like my hand is a prolongation. Pretend my elbow is my knee. My foot is just hanging down. This would be the equivalent of my heel. So without a stirrup, everything's hanging down. And the language that is used in the descriptions of the rider's foot and the way that it rests in the stirrup, I just use the language. The foot rests on the stirrup. It doesn't pressure down into the stirrup. There has been, I started saying this a moment ago, there has been a very huge mistake perpetrated in the hunter jumper world, and it's spread into other worlds. And that is the idea of a strong leg or a stiff leg and a down driven heel. And that's not what the riding is. The whole rider's body, every joint is to be relaxed so it can be elastic. And then if my stirrups are short in a jumping or galloping length, then my heel's going to drop. I'll be always dropping down. But I'm not driving it down. It's the weight that's letting it drop. So now let's just talk about the foot. I almost want to keep the heel separate. The heel will tend to take care of itself when the entire body becomes loosened. And a loose body, that every joint in the rider's body is relaxed and resistance free, that is the aim of the start of a rider's education, or even before, like just get the riders loose. Okay, so the foot. This is a stirrup tread. Why do I have stirrup treads at my desk? I actually buy them in bulk. And the reason why is that I know it's not actual, but I feel like I can feel the newness of my treads with my soft, alive foot resting in the stirrup, even through my stiff boot. Because nothing's clamped, and the weight of my leg is in my foot, and that keeps it secure in the stirrup. And I can feel, and I can load the stirrup just with my middle, I think it's called tarsus, metatarsus, my middle toe on the ball of the foot. I can make the stirrup. I can go, I'm on this side, horsey. Anyway, I think I'm digressing. I don't know how to really get into this. We all have heard, and let me just, I can't demonstrate with my foot, but this is the equivalent of the ball of the foot, where the fingers meet the palm, or where, oh, this might be an anatomy professional to help us. One moment. Oh, hello. Hi, I'm going to put you on speaker. Thank you so much for calling, because I was just starting to fumble over anatomy terms. Here, I'm going to, yes. All right. So we now have a rider trainer with us. I was just explaining how the ball of the foot rests upon the stirrup tread, and that there's a softness to it, so that I could almost wiggle my toes, or I think they're the metatarsals in my foot, and feel my stirrup, feel the bottom of the stirrup, and then almost it feels like I could find the ground, because it's all just dropping through. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think a good way to explain it is if you're, standing on your feet right now, or even if you're sitting, and you curl your toes up really tight, and you curl them really tight, and then you relax them, and then you curl them really tight and pull them up, and then you just let them rest, and that nice wide openness.
Yes.
And you're just balancing. It's just or yoga or any sort of position, any sport that you have to be ready to go.
Yes.
You're balancing right over the ball of your foot, so you're ready. You could go forward, you could stop. You're not jammed into your heel.
Right.
And your toes are nice and spread and open and relaxed, which allows you that softness to be able to make a motion from. Because you can't, if you curl your toes and try to push, you're like locked. Your knees are locked. It goes all the way up the chain. If I'm curling my toes, my quads get tight, my calves get tight.
Yes.
Yes. So it moves all the way from the far to the top. And if you think about typical development of a child, so you're supposed to develop your core muscles first, your proximal muscles, before you work your distal, which is your feet and your hands.
Yes.
And then people who have disabilities, they oftentimes don't have the proximal strength, so they grip distally, like kids with cerebral palsy or some sort of genetic predisposition where the brain isn't functioning. So they grip and they do things, they call it fixating with their feet and hands.
I see.
And
yes.
we all as riders, we all revert back to these kind of
grabbing on
things that are happening in our body. It's just what our body does. We have to teach it to do the opposite.
Yes. The training of the rider's position is to teach it to loosen as its default, instead of grip and try to stay on. Yes.
If we can't stabilize with our middle and with our balance, then we tend to fix distally. So our feet grab, our hands grab, versus finding our balance within our center.
Right.
And basically our brain telling our body how to stay upright.
Right. Right. and the whole center, the gravity, we're in midair resting on a moving object. So a new rider has to learn it. What I notice when I taught more novice riders, I know a lot of dressage riders, I noticed a lot of them having a lot of pressure on the inside of their foot or the outside of their foot. Especially on the outside, I would notice riders like pushing out the outside of their boot at the foot. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I have, and I actually experienced it myself. I think I had somebody tell me I needed to point my knees a certain direction. And I needed my knees more forward. And so by trying to get my knees more forward, I took it up in my ankle. And then my ankle would burn because I was basically everting the foot. So I was rolling at the ankle joint, which takes your ankle out of neutral. So if you just if your foot's neutral and you roll like you're going to look at something on the bottom of your shoe on the inside, that's ankle eversion. And then your joint, you're fully at the end range and your joint is locked.
It
so
locks
it's going to again go all the way up the chain. But if you put your foot flat, then you could go medial, lateral, inside, outside, forward, back. Your foot is nice and loose and in the middle.
Yes.
You can't be at the end ranges.
You're actually reminding me now how I used to address it in the warm-ups, in the rising trot warm-ups. I used to say, feel the outside of your foot, feel the inside of your foot, switch back and forth to get them having a more normal spread across the entire stirrup tread arrangement of the resting of the foot.
Yes.
Yes.
When I worked with a German physiology person who taught motion, he talked about that the body knows the middle. So if you go to extreme opposing motions, like you just said, I went go to the outside, go to the inside, go to the outside, go to the inside, then find the middle.
Yes.
If you go to extreme opposites and then find the middle, your body wants to go where it can energy expenditure, which is neutral.
Yes, which is what riding is. Basically, riding is that all of our joints and muscles are in the joints are in a released mode and the muscles are decontracted for the most part. That's how it should be our default position. And that is what is known as loose or letting go, losgelassen. And it includes our foot. So talking about problems with the feet, there are two things that are banned at this farm. One of them are the stirrups that have the elastic sides, and which I owned myself. But when I realized, like one day I went, oh my God. And I realized the problem that they were bringing on and I threw them in the garbage. And the other thing that I don't allow are Ariat boots. But talking about those stirrups with the elastic sides, if I have a piece of equipment that's elastic, here's a regular stirrup. If the sides of my stirrups are going to give, my ankle and foot and leg isn't going to give. Does that make sense as a physical?
Yeah. So if you're walking across a solid piece of wood that's like a balance beam. Now somebody put the balance beam and put it on like shock absorbers, which would be harder to balance on. The balance beam that moves, right? Right. But however, if your ankle is locked, say you have you had ankle surgery and you're fused or whatever, sometimes those stirrups, like for a person with a disability, it's because they can't make their ankle work, so it ends up taking over their knees. So sometimes you can utilize stuff if, again, you have specific problems that you can't get around. Yeah. But in a typical healthy rider, yes. Yes. Yeah. And we're talking typical healthy riders. Now let's think about the horse for a minute. If the weight through my seat, base of support, leg, everything is dropping down through my leg, through my foot, into my stirrup, and my stirrup is giving, what is not going through as well to the horse? The weight. So those stirrups undo the most important primary aid in horse training.
So important. I wish I could. Well, maybe a lot of people will someday see this or hear this. They're very, very anti-riding. And they make
Also, I think the thing that we talked about another day was like, just problems in the feet.
yeah,
You're sometimes saying it's happening from somewhere else. So again, if I'm losing my balance or I can't find my balance, you know, whatever, I may do weird things in my feet when it's really something that's higher up.
right,
Basic support isn't great.
right. You're trying to almost hold on to the trapeze bar with the
Yes.
foot because something above. My experience is that usually the thing above is a tightness, is something
Yes.
else holding. And so if I can get the whole system loose, 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 all the way down, so it's dropping, 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 dropping. And
The other thing is people who want to, like, they think they're riding dressage, so they lengthen the stirrups so much that they have no base of support,
yep,
and they're riding around super long stirrups and no stability, and then they end up doing all sorts of weird stuff.
yeah. And then they get told that they told about stirrup stepping, which is a thing. So stirrup stepping, if the horse is very well tuned to the weight aid and I sit really soft in excellent, perfect balance, then a touch on a stirrup, a touch on my stirrup on one side or the other will oscillate the fine balance.
Right.
But the people that just lengthen their stirrups and start pushing their feet around in stirrup stepping, that actually is a trend. I haven't seen that in a while, thank goodness.
If you lengthen your stirrup and push and lock your heel, so that's the other thing I see is people locking their heels. And they say, well, I went and I was told to put my heels down. And then they lock. So the minute I just literally, if I'm sitting here and I jam my heels down, which pulls my toes up, my back of my hip locks. Like it goes all the way up my chain and my muscles. So
Yeah.
the gravity has to drop the ankle through elasticity, not through rigidity, locking the ankle. Because you'll be like a human catapult. Your ankle's off. All you gotta do is jump a fence.
Gravity drops the ankle, not pressure or rigidity. You just said it. That last 30 seconds, you just summarized the whole thing. And that whole heels down, false teaching, false idea that got really imposed, especially on Americans for the last 30 or 40 years. Heels down. Heels drop down when they're loose and elastic and the horse is in motion. Yeah. Yeah.
You watch a good jumper, you see the elasticity of their ankles, you know?
Yes.
Versus if you watch sometimes these really rigid, not so great hunters or whatever, and they're locked. And if that horse were to stop, they go flying over their head.
Yeah. The ones that the heels are constantly forced down, they are not in a secure position. They are in a risky position on the horse.
Very risky.
Very, very risky. Yes, yes, yes.
That's why they can't jump the big jump.
Yes, or they can. They buy a great horse, but the horse can't hold up because then the horse has this rigid spike dropping down at it all the time instead of an elastic load.
It'd be like having somebody on your body just rigid all the time. Would be horrible, wouldn't it?
It would be horrible. It would be really horrible. Especially
dancing with a person who really still.
Yeah. Especially if they were yelling at you to be harmonious.
They're jerking you around the dance floor.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me, so the other thing that I hate are the Ariat boots because they have the arch support in the foot and they also tend to fit very well and close. I have custom boots. I've had custom boots for 35 years. I haven't had a stock boot. Always my boots feel too big for me a little bit. If I'm riding, they feel great. If I'm on the ground, they feel a little loose in the foot. And the bottom of my boots are flat. And so my foot is more like a barefoot foot in my boot. What is the effect of a closed, close-fitting shoe or foot or boot with an arch support in it? What is that gonna, you talk about the chain going up? I'm mostly interested.
I don't know if I know what you're saying, because obviously if it's the same idea. If your toes are spread, like if you're in yoga class, your feet are loose and spread, the wider your base of support is, you have more balance.
Yeah.
You clench up your toes and have a smaller surface area, it's going to affect your balance. But I have to say with people, like arch support is so different. Like people's feet are so different.
Yeah,
Like
that's
some
true.
people have really naturally good arches, and like it wouldn't probably affect my foot. I have a pretty decent upright arch, and I don't have weird, you know what I mean?
Yep,
So it's all about basic support. I think it's very individual.
yep.
Getting your foot in it,
But-
giving you that basic support.
But I think then that if there is going to be some sort of orthopedic in a riding shoe, in a riding boot, there's a difference between what is going to be orthopedically helpful in walking than in riding. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, I mean your foot's not, yeah, because it really is just hanging there.
Yeah, we want the foot in a way to just be hanging. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other
I
things
mean, in all reality, you don't even need your feet to ride. Like, I mean, if you amputated your legs,
you'd be, yep,
you could ride without you can ride.
yes, it
And
would
your
be
way-
able to ride.
I mean, amputees can ride.
Yep. Yep. Especially the better trained horses. Yes. Yeah. The foot is sort of like the finish of the leg. It's like we don't want all the weight in the foot, but we want all the weight to go through the foot, to be able to drop through the foot. Is that proper the way I said that? Maybe not all the way.
Yeah, drop through the ball of the foot.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Well-
if you're even standing on the ground and your knees are bent, and you're like in a ready.
It drops through. I think it spreads pretty evenly on the bottom of my
But if you
boot.
rock to your heel and brace your foot, you fall backwards.
Correct. Yes.
If you rock to the toe, you fall forward.
Yes. It drops on the flat. The weight is dropping sort of on my foot. If my foot were level resting and not moving, and then the going of the horse will make my heel drop. And it won't drop and stay. It'll bounce. It'll sort of drop, 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 drop. Does that sound? Yeah, I think that's how it is.
I think the foot is to the hip as the hand is to the shoulder in a way. You know, it's just the
Yes.
chain, you know, everything.
Yes.
You got to have your base of support so that everything hangs off it.
Yes. Yes. And I like the way you said, and everything hangs off the base of support. So I think I think the most helpful thing we could say to people is to make sure that the leg is that the thigh is hanging out of the hip, and the knee is resting, and the leg is hanging from the resting knee, and that the foot is just a prolongation of that hanging leg.
Yeah.
Yes.
I watched the lesson years ago, and I think you had mentioned you did this as well. And I can't remember. I was just watching the lesson, and the teacher must have been trying to figure out the ankle, so she had him take his shoes off and ride with no boots, so she could look at his feet.
Yes, I used to do that a lot. to
Flying
people.
in his toes,
Yeah.
which is affecting everything up. So once she figured out they keep the toes spread and lengthened, then his whole feet improved.
Yes, very good image. And I used to do that a lot to people. It might be a good thing for other instructors to try. Have your riders ride in socks for a day. And the other thing that instructors can do is inspect your students' stirrup treads and look at the bottom of their boots, and you're going to see the way that they might be doing weirdnesses with their feet from the wearing. Okay.
Yeah, like you said, if there's ankle pain, like it's hurting on the outside of your ankle,
Yeah.
that means your foot's rolled.
Right.
Shouldn't hurt.
It shouldn't hurt there. Yeah, there's other places that are going to
Shouldn't
hurt, but not there. Yeah. Okay, I think, is there anything else we need to say about the foot, about the rider's feet? I also noticed the top of the feet. Riders will hold tension there, and they will, in order to make their heels appear down, they'll tighten the top of their foot. That's a place for instructors to watch out for.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the feet is something that, like you said, can be hidden in shoes. You don't always see it, but you have to look at the whole picture.
Yes. Yes, and it also is a reminder, if there's feet issues that instructors notice, that to train the function of the entire seat, the problems with the feet usually come from some cosmetic image that a rider is trying to form of a heel down or a perfect angle or some such thing.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Okay, do you think we've covered it? I think we've done it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I'll
Bye.
talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, so that's about the foot and the feet. And you can, if you want to know some references in the books by the ODGs where stuff like this gets talked about, email me. And I can tell you what sections to look like, and in some cases, even some page numbers. Stirrup stepping, for example, I know that Steinbeck mentions it in the chapter on the seat, but these ideas, this is where it's risky. Just stay with looseness, open seat, training the aids. This is what makes the distal, the faraway parts work out right. The foot is a prolongation of the leg that is hanging. All right.